first, I would like to revisit how wonderful was our memorial service for our beloved Wayne Russell Catenock. Come on up, Don. So Don did this when we had our memorial service for Wayne on Friday at 4 o'clock. I think about 80 people showed up. And it was glorious in that the music was so uplifting and expressive, and it was commercial music picked by Patty and Wayne. And then Don offered to do Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Well, we had no idea what he was going to do with it. Plus, he wrote a song for and about Wayne. And so I wanted all of us to hear it.
This is my view of Wayne. I don't claim to have known him really well, but I do claim to know where his heart was a lot. Hey, Michigan country boy, fruits of hard work he learned, the love of family, friends, craft, and the trade he earned. A master of the art of making the bamboo fly rod, understanding the tools, materials, time and patience, all gifts from God. He realized the dream to sail both the extreme and love the calm moments, the light breeze serene. He shared the dream of love outdoors, fly rod, a river, trout stream. The love of life and just being. A soft-spoken man, world-known outdoorsman, bamboo fly rod, get it done guy, plumbing, heating, and cooling, so many things he could do. It wasn't as much about talk, it was about getting things done, the love of doing. He also knew how to let go and just have fun. His realized dream sailed both the extreme and loved the calm moments of a light breeze serene. He shared the dream of the love of outdoors, fly rod, river, trout stream, and the love of life and just being. Catching spirits wind sails off to eternity's sunrise. Great love gives us comfort to dry the tears in our eyes. Catching spirits wind, he sails off to eternity's sunrise. Great love gives comfort to dry the tears in our eyes. Thank you.
So here we are on a series of talks that says unity is the study of truth, truth with a capital T, the divine truth. And that's why on the cover for this series we're having a picture of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is a mythical story of the search for that vessel, that chalice that Jesus used in the Last Supper when he drank wine with his disciples and said, "This is the cup of the new covenant." Okay, so it's a symbol of truth. And that's why we're just having it on the cover just for this month, because, Unity's not that much into symbols and icons and, formalities and outer things. But it's also wonderful to know the inner meaning of symbols. This Holy Grail represents the key to our very existence, the opening up in consciousness to divine being. So our first step on that study of truth was that when you enter into a new consciousness, when you enter into a commitment for your spiritual growth, you get a new identity. You start to realize, no, I'm not the insufficient person. I'm not the person that the voice outside says, "Who do you think you are?" to try to help people. No, I am God's gift to the world. That's your new identity. Then you start to realize, and reality isn't what I thought it was either. Materiality, what I see with my five senses, that's not the end of things. There's wonderful videos on YouTube by a scientist in England named Rupert Sheldrake. I love him. Have you seen any of his work? And he wrote a book called The Science Delusion, in which he explains 10 sort of doctrines that scientific community accepts as truth that are not true. And what he wakes us up to is that the prevailing worldview is materialism. That everything is what we see in the tangible world, and that's the end of it. And it's all runs by laws of physics that are immutable like a machine. And we're finding out that's really not true. So a new reality is to see beyond the appearances. And that's a huge, mind-blowing experience. We did that last week. And then where you get to is your actions. How do your actions reflect what you're experiencing, what you're realizing, what you're catching on to? And I think that's what this song we've been singing, A New Way, I think that's what it captures so beautifully. And I gotta tell you, my sister, Martha, wrote that. She grew up in Unity. She wrote it right out of college. And she really wanted to come out and change the world and call people to enter into this new way and create a new reality for all of us. And it ended up in the Unitarian hymnal called Songs for the Journey. And I'm going to send you, I would like to send all of you that I have emails for, a link to a YouTube video of Sam Harris, who won the first, what was it called? Talent contest. What's it called? The first one. American Idol. He won the first one. If you remember him, Sam Harris, he won it with his singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Yeah? Well, he has a video where he's singing, he's leading a whole conference of people in the song Building a New Way, and teaches it to them as they go through. They don't have words in front of them. You know, the early Christians were called followers of the way. The Buddhists and the Taoists teach the sacred way. The Tao is actually the way, translated, but it means much more than just the way, like the way to the store. It means the way, the path, the sacred path of life. And in the Native American spirituality calls the life journey of exalted wisdom the beauty way. Have you heard that? The beauty way. Yeah. Well, today we're talking about our way of moving down the road of life, our way of being, our way of showing up, our way of responding. Now, when you go to like when I went to the Unity Ministers Conference in Moline, Illinois, just about a month ago, they had us split up in pairs and do all kinds of outrageous things and draw pictures and color things and tell stories about ourselves. And we don't have time to do that today. Aren't you disappointed? Because actually when I ask people to get into pairs, everybody gets shy and says, I don't know who to pair with, if we get weird. And so, good, we're not going to do that. Maybe I'll have a workshop on that for people who want to do that kind of thing. But just imagine what you might have done if I had asked you to draw or a sketch or a cartoon or a doodle that depicts you on the road of life. And a picture that's in your worst moment. And then draw a picture or a doodle or a sketch of you on the road of life in one of your best moments. And then tell your partner the story of these moments. And then switch papers. And then pretend that your partner's sketch, doodle, drawing, cartoon of the worst moment is a story about you, and pretend what worst moment might you have had that expresses their drawing. What best moment you have had that expresses their drawing. And the point of the exercise is, you see, we all have our moments. We all have these moments. We all do these things. But how are we taught in unity to go the distance in our lives, in truth, as truth students? What are we taught that we need to know to go on this way in life? So one is, know that you are the Christ. And if you don't want to have such Christocentric language, know that you are divine. Know that you are a spiritual being. Second, know that everyone else is a spiritual being. That, it's very important. Knowing that you're a spiritual being, and then remembering the person you interact with, they are a spiritual being. Number 3, know that nothing can ever change this. This cannot be changed. Nothing can ever change the truth of who you are. And I have to tell this story little story about Johnny Coleman. Johnny Coleman is the African-American woman minister who actually ordained Della Reese at the Christ Universal Temple in Chicago. And she is an ordained Unity minister. She's deceased now, Johnny Coleman. But she was a really good friend of my mom's, who was also a Unity minister. In fact, when Unity School in the 1950s would not let Johnny Coleman have housing on the grounds of Unity Farm because she was African American, she almost left the program. And my mother was on the committee to support ministerial students. She got on a plane that day and flew out to Kansas City and took Johnny aside and said, "Don't let these people drive you away. You have an important message and we need it. Don't let this stop you." And from then on, Johnny Coleman loved my mother so much, and whenever I would encounter her, the last time I encountered her, she was the keynote speaker at the New Thought Conference in Washington, D.C., right around 1990. And I went to that keynote speech opening, and afterwards I went up to her and I said, I'm Ann Sandifer's daughter. And she said, "Oh, I love you and I love your mother." And what she said at that speech was, "I know that you have suffered, that things have been done to you that were so tragic, so cruel, but it never touched you. Because that flame of spirit that is the truth of who we are can never, ever be changed by anything." Number 4, know that you can never lose that which is yours. Know that love can never be lost. These are things that the mainstream reasonable mindset of the culture that we live in, our environment, our milieu, They don't support us in claiming these things and internalizing these realities. But I tell you, if you internalize these ideas, everything changes for you. You have a new way of living. Know that you are created whole, strong, and well. That was Myrtle Fillmore's great insight. She went to a class and they taught that you are a child of God, therefore you do not inherit sickness. You inherit all that God is. And she was about 3 weeks away from being declared, her tuberculosis the doctors had said, put your affairs in order, you don't have long. 2 years later, she was completely healed because she changed her way of thinking about her body and how she was created and what she had inherited as a spiritual being. Number 7, know that you have divine help when you ask, even sometimes when you don't ask, but especially when you do ask. You have divine help. You don't have to do this alone. Call them angels, call it spirit, call it the universe. The universe responds. And then lastly, know that you have access to all knowledge. What if we told children, this is what we told our children in Unity Sunday School, the mind of Christ is in you, and the mind of Christ already knows all that there is to know. So when you go to school, just remember, just tune in, just tap in to the possibility of the limitless mind that is God. God is mind with a capital M. For the way is a discipline of practicing the principles of Christianity. To love, to serve, to care, to bring joy, kindness, and compassion into the world. What a beautiful way that is. And I have to say, I can recall many times when I was really mindfully living these ideas, and I thought I was, moving along, and I was making progress, and all of a sudden, I find I'm in a ditch. And I thought I was doing so well. How did I wind up in the ditch like this? Walking in a positive, constructive, uplifted way of practical Christianity, and then suddenly find that, feel like a bicyclist who rode off the road and fell off. How many of you felt that, have experienced that? Well, how does that happen? I remember asking myself, how did I get here? How indeed, and here is how. Here is how we drive ourselves into a ditch. By being attached to our expectations, by being judgmental, by resisting, by centering ourselves, by being centered in self, by being centered in the needs of ourselves, and thus caught up in illusions and drama. All of our states of mental illness are various forms of being immaturely self-centered. The infant born into this world must be self-centered, but we grow out of that. And as we grow out of that, we awaken into our spiritual path or way. I remember meeting a young woman who was majoring in psychology. And I said to her, I've come to the conclusion that all forms of mental illness are a kind of immaturity. And she said, that's what Freud thought. Really? Wow. Very, very, very interesting. But this is how we wind up in the ditch. That way lies madness, when we do not open our hearts, open our souls to caring, to compassionate interactions with people, to sharing, to giving, to using that heart connection. We do not grow and we do not thrive. So here is another thing you need for the journey. The realization that your needs are fulfilled by God and that you have no needs that God cannot and does not fulfill. Boy, our consumerist society is the very antithesis of that, isn't it? How many of you remember our minister's phone mail package, little comedy skit? No? One of the messages is it's a little skit we've done before, and the phone rings and the answering thing goes, "This is Reverend sits in prayer. If you are calling for my help, just know that in the absolute, you have no needs. You're welcome. Goodbye." That was written by a ministerial student. So yeah, God is my help in every need. That is the first line of the prayer of faith. The realization that life is eternal, that death is an appearance, not real, that there is nothing to fear in the death of a loved one or yourself. I've come to see that some people are walking with a burden of the fear of death that just barricades their whole life. It's like the issue of loneliness. It's a basic issue. Everyone must overcome loneliness so that whether you're alone or whether you're with people, you're fine. Because you are in touch with the whole universe. You're not ever alone in reality. Same thing is true of death. It's a basic developmental task for the spiritual growth of everyone to just get over the fear of death. It's nothing to fear. Then the realization that you are created whole and perfect, and it is not your nature to be anything other than that. You have the right to think of yourself in that way. Do not compromise your idea of what you are carrying through life. How are you showing up? However you are is whole and perfect. Right now, nothing has to change. It's good. The way, the Tao, is an intersection of disciplines mastered by self-awareness. And to attain that requires great self-mastery and self-discipline. That's why we come to church every week throughout our lives. It's a lifelong education. It's a lifelong process and dedication. And it's such a joyous thing to hold that first, to make that your first priority. What I'm learning about living, what I'm learning about how to practice these ideas of transcendent truth, of spiritual living. Now notice I do not say that the way requires self-control. You do not want to put yourself in a straitjacket. You are not seeking to you are seeking to express your divinity, not restrict your freedom. The way of the truth student is a way of demonstrating the highest potential of human nature. It's a walk through our experiences such that we are a blessing to everyone we meet. Know this and be blessed by it. Amen. Thank you. This is our time for communion in the silence. Our meditation statement is, my soul's journey is a sacred path of divine order. And so let's begin by vocalizing that statement. I'll say it one more time. My soul's journey is a sacred path of divine order. Together. My soul's journey is a sacred path of divine And in that realization, we now abide in the silence. He that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. We behold these mysteries, and so it is. Amen.